Good afternoon to all of our guests here at the North American Bear Center and those of you tuning in online to our live broadcast program. It is 12:30 EV time, which means it's either Monday, Wednesday, or Friday if we're doing the broadcast, because that's when we do it. So happy Friday, everybody. It is 12:30 in the middle of the fall time here, in either middle of October, rather. The winter is actually fast approaching, so we might even be past that midway point in our fall. But regardless, leaves are turning and dropping. In fact, we had some of the staff today collecting leaves, or bedding rather, for the bears. We do have a small pile left out front here in front of the rock den, but none of the bears seem interested in that den this year, which is interesting because that was a highly sought-after piece of real estate last year. So just like our own housing market, the bear housing market here at the Bear Center fluctuates greatly year to year. So the bears don't seem to be as enthused with this rock den down front anymore. But again, we had both females battling for it last year, and ultimately Holly was the winner of that battle, as she is our matriarch here at the center. She runs the whole enclosure, and so the whole 2.5 acres, including all the private enclosures, all just Holly's, at least as of right now. She lays claim to the entire thing as her territory. This is similar to how we see bears operate in the wild. The females claim territories. The males have what we call a home range, the difference being the size and how large and indefensible it is for the males. They don't actively defend every inch of it, ensuring that the food in it goes to them and them only like the females do. The females have much smaller defined territories, and they actively patrol and guard it because the food within that territory is for them and their offspring. Should they allow other bears to take large portions of that, that could lead to negative impacts to their offspring down the line. So they are active in defending every inch of it and making sure that that food and the resources within that territory go to the female and her offspring. Now, we're probably not going to have bears down front for this program like we usually do. This time of the year, our bears start to get rather lethargic and their activity level drops considerably. In fact, one of our bears, we're fairly sure, is right on the cusp of entering or has entered what we call fall transition, the last stage in the annual 5 stages of the black bear. And that is the stage right before they enter hibernation. But since we start keeping track of the year in January and the bears start our year in hibernation, we call that the first stage. So Lucky, our male and only male, he's 16 years old, and he is between 400 and 600 pounds at the moment. He's pretty large for a male bear. He's just on the upper end of average. We're pretty sure he's entering his fall transition. He's becoming very slow-moving, very lethargic, still intaking large amounts of fluid, but hardly any food. And that is indicative of what happens when you approach that time of year and that annual stage. Bears will stop eating. In fact, a bear will not eat from this point in the year all the way until it wakes up in the spring, or gets up rather in the spring. They don't truly sleep through that winter like other hibernators do. So once Lucky decides he's done eating for the year, again, he will not eat food until usually mid to late April of the next year, and that is same for the wild bears. They don't eat at all through that winter dormancy. They actually survive solely off the fat layer they've built up. That's why they are aggressive in eating a lot of food, not necessarily the food items that they eat, but the fact that they eat constantly throughout the spring, summer, and fall, and that is their main focus, is because, again, in this area specifically, 6 to 7 months will be spent in that winter dormancy, and so you need to make up all the food on a whole calendar year in a short spring, summer, and fall, which is usually 4 to 5 months in this area, and you got to make up that food for, again, a whole year. So eating is the name of the game, and eating efficiently is also a big part of that. Not expending energy when you can avoid doing so, to save on that energy that you've built up. So our bears are very good at cost-benefit analysis, and black bears in general are, because they don't want to expend too much energy to get any particular food item, because then it's a negative activity in terms of energy. So they want to save all that energy and store it as fat so that they have an easy winter and have not only an insulative layer but an energy layer to use in order to keep them sustained through that winter period. Once the bears enter that fall transition, the reason they intake so much water is to clear out their digestional tract. Bears have a rather short digestive tract, which means when they go number 2, or they produce what we call a scat, you can often identify whole food items within that scat. Our bears here at the center are no different. When they go to the bathroom, since we feed lots of peanuts, you will sometimes find whole peanuts in that scat. The bears won't eat it, but other animals will take advantage of that. Blue jays, chickadees, squirrels and chipmunks, as cute as they are, they do have some dirty little secrets in that they are not above getting their first meal items from the poopy peanuts that the bears produce. And so, again, I know they're cute, but they are pretty gross in terms of that. So the bears, secondarily, in terms of their role in the ecosystem, do provide food to other animals directly through their scat. But there's a reason that digestive tract is so short. The reason for that is it's their main role in the ecosystem is to be a seed disperser. They are one of the few animals that can eat whole seeds, such as the Canadian plum. No other animal besides a human possesses the ability to swallow a plum seed whole and have it come out the other end perfectly fertile and ready to go. But the bears do. And so their main role, because the vast majority of their diet is just nuts and berries, which are, after all, just seeds for plants, bears eat a ton of that at one point, and when they go to the bathroom, they will produce a large amount of perfectly intact seeds with a small pile of fertilizer to go along with it, which will eventually grow into more berry and nut bushes for all the animals. So they are in charge of keeping the composition or the integrity of the forest in which they live intact simply by eating and going to the bathroom. So again, this short digestive tract, it needs to be purged of all waste material before they can go into that winter hibernation. That's the reason the bears consume massive amounts of water during this fall transition. They can consume gallons upon gallons in a single day during this fall transition period. And that is, again, to purge that digestive tract. Should some leftover material get stuck in that tract while they go through that 6 to 7 month dormancy, that can lead to negative health impacts for the bears, because they are going to be recycling their nutrients within their body and not wasting anything. And so if there's excess food built up in there, and because that digestive system shuts down, they will not have anything to do with those extra nutrients, and they can, again, lead to issues. Bears won't go number 2 or number 1, so they won't go to the bathroom really at all during that winter dormancy. In the spring, they may get up and eat a little bit of snow and may urinate slightly, but again, urination and defecation do not happen. So that's why it's so important for that system, that digestive system specifically, to be cleared of all nutrient, because the bears will actually form what's known as a fecal plug. So they physically can't go number 2 through the entire winter because there is a plug that physically will not allow them. That plug is typically made up of hair, skin, and the bedding they choose. But it is formed there, and again, that's another reason we know the bears do not go number 2, is they have a physical plug there that prevents them from doing that. And again, that is to help conserve energy. They do not want to use that digestive tract at all, because it does take energy to digest food, and it takes significantly less energy to digest fat that you've already made from food and converted to fat. So that's why it's a lot easier to go about it that way, and that's one of the reasons, or the evolutionary process, and why their digestive tract is not used during the winter, is it's just simply not efficient. And it costs more energy to digest and use than it would just to consume fat and live off of that. But not only is Lucky slowing down right now, all of our bears are, which is why we don't have any down front for you. On a typical program for our 12:30 broadcast program, we do have bears down front, and we typically give them enrichment or some type of food, so folks can not only watch and enjoy them, but learn bear behaviors from the bear themselves, because after all, a black bear is the best teacher about black bears than anybody else, because again, they are a black bear. They would know better than anybody. And so we allow our guests here at the center to learn from the bears themselves, and that is kind of our go-to in terms of education and programming. However, at this point in the year, because they are so lethargic, again, they just don't really want to wander all the way down here. And I say all the way, it's really only 50 yards, if that, for our furthest away bear. They just really don't want to spend that energy. So, for example, Holly and Lucky are both in what we call pen 1, which is just to the right of the deck, the first pen on our behind-the-scenes trail. They are both in that same den, which is unusual. Typically in the wild, adult males and females do not hibernate together. Yes, it may have been recorded, but it's definitely not a commonality. So here in captivity, sometimes they do hibernate together, but that is typically a captive behavior. It's not something we observe in the wild bears often at all. So it's quite rare, actually, to have 2 adult bears hibernate together. But that is what's happening here at the center. We do have Lucky and Holly currently, seemingly, together in a den. Now, Lucky gets the short end of that stick, as he's the one seen out of it most often. So that's either Holly getting annoyed and kicking him out, because in the bear world, the females are in charge, or Lucky's choosing to stay up and stay out of the den a little bit longer because it's hot, warm, or he just doesn't want to get that close to Holly. He could have a varying amount of reasons for that. But right now, if you look at pen 1, you'll see Lucky sitting at the entrance. Holly is tucked away within the den, but again, Lucky is not all the way in there. He's being forced, or maybe choosing, to be sitting out at the front. Now, those dens were just built this year, and I've seen it myself, and I've been in it myself, as has our head bear keeper, Sharon, and a few of the other staff, to check it out and make sure it was suitable for the bears. And while it is suitable, for the bears. We don't think 2 will fit there. So it'll be quite interesting to see how they maybe continue to excavate and how they prepare that den. If they both plan on using it, we don't think it's quite large enough for both of them. So we'll see how that plays out. But bears are very capable diggers. They are very good at it, and their claws are actually specially designed for it. So, again, quite formidable and capable diggers. And so it shouldn't be that much of an issue for them to make more space in there. But we'll see how that all plays out. Tasha is in her own private enclosure, and she has chosen to use one of the private enclosure dens as well. So again, this year, all the bears currently, or at least what we're thinking, are looking at using new dens. So they're dens that they haven't been used in the past or built in the past. We have one that we've built a long time ago, which you can see down front. Again, that was a high priority location last fall, and the bears did argue about who ended up getting that one. This year, seems like, again, all the new dens we built are far more preferred. In fact, the bears are also allowed to make their own den. So not only did Holly choose, or seemingly at this point choose one of the private enclosure dens, she also dug 2 whole dens basically. So her first one, this was about a month ago. She dug far too close to our perimeter fencing, and she was able to dig just about outside of it. And so, because we didn't want to run into a Holly out in the alleyway, we decided to cave it in and fill it with rock because, it was just too close to the perimeter fencing, and she was encroaching on that. So she wasn't too happy with us for that. We did cave it in and fill it. So she had to start from scratch, and she completely started from scratch, literally from bare ground, and dug a whole new den, and then decided not to use it. So again, that's not a very good cost-benefit analysis there. That was a really big waste of energy. So it does surprise us that she's not planning on using that den. We thought after putting in all that effort to make it nice the way she wants it, that she would undoubtedly use it, but apparently these other dens are much more of her liking or fitting. And these are all built by people, so that's quite interesting. The Low Impact did the fence for us this spring, and this summer they also made those dens for us. And although we did inspect them and make sure that they were nice and fit for the bears, they were built by humans, which typically don't make as good of a bear den as a bear does. So it is quite interesting that even after all that effort and all that work, she still seemingly prefers one of these human-built dens. However, there's still time in the year, and Holly could still decide at this point she wants that other den or any other of the other dens. There's 3 in the main enclosure that are man-built, and there are a handful of others the bears have built, and some have washed away over the years, and some have been recreated. And so we know of at least one more that, again, Holly dug this year that's in the main enclosure. So there's at least 4 options for them in the main enclosure, as well as 1 in each of the private enclosures. So we have a total right now, bear-made, man-made altogether, of about 9 different dens for the bears. We have 3 bears, so we have a surplus of dens. But again, they get to decide kind of where they go. We like to allow our bears to choose. If they want to dig their own dens from scratch, great. If they want to use one of the dens we provide, that's great too. So they do get the option for the most part here at the center of what they would rather do or what's more comfortable for them. So at this time of the year, we're also just not really seeing wild bears at this point. Typically, most of them are probably down for the year. However, if you look hard enough and you go to certain areas, you will still see bear scat that's been appearing. And so some bears do persist up later. Oftentimes, older, more mature males that have been around the block, or it's not their first rodeo in terms of their first fall, they will stay up typically a little bit later, especially if there is some food to gather. Now, this year, the food seemed to quickly go away this fall. In fact, typically at this time, rose hips and mountain ash berries are not necessarily bountiful, but you can still find them. There's not a whole lot of that left out in the woods right now. So a lot of the wild and natural food sources are gone, and that's actually the biggest driver of hibernation. A lot of people think temperature and daylight is what pushes the bears into their winter dormancy, but it's actually food availability is actually the biggest driver of that. So the bears know once the food goes away, they have to go away too, and they'll get back up consequently in the spring when the food comes back. So again, the wild bears in this area are probably mostly down for the year. It's kind of a gradient. They don't all go down on the same day, and it takes a while. They may go down for a day in the den and stay there for 36 hours, and then 2 days later they get back up, and they're out for a full week. So it's kind of a process as they slowly make the den and then get into it. They also need to get bedding into it. And actually, I'm looking at Lucky right now, and he's raking some bedding material. And so he uses his front paws to make piles of it, and they'll usually use one paw and a mouth to carry that pile after he's made it. But if you're looking on the camera on Pen 1, or if you're out here on the deck, you can look through some of the trees there, and you can see Lucky as he now is looking around, but he's slowly doing some raking as well. So we actually, again, collected some more materials for the bears. They'll collect their own materials as well, but it's obviously a little easier for them if we dump a pile of leaves in there for them. So sometimes we will do that. In past years, we've used straw and other material. Some of the bears are a little pickier about what they get, and some prefer to use their own materials. But Lucky here, he's not picky. He'll use whatever we give him, or if we don't give him enough, he'll apparently just start scraping up whatever laying in front of the den, because that's what he's doing right now. So if you're watching online, I highly recommend you check out Pen 1, because that's where Lucky and Holly are. If you're here at the center, you probably can't see him from inside, but if you come out on the deck, you are able to at least get a glimpse of Lucky and raking behavior. It is kind of a fun time of the year to watch the bears rake, because they do it, like I said, in a similar fashion humans would do. You make small piles, gather the piles, and get rid of the leaves. It's just the bears, since they're so lethargic this time of year, it does kind of appear like they're moving in slow motion. And so for Lucky to completely rake a small pen like that, which is about a 30 by 30, maybe 40 by 40 pen, could take him all day, just because that's how slow moving they are at this point in the year. So it takes them a long time to rake those materials. So just for an example, a couple of years ago we had Tasha use this rock den down front, right behind the deer scale there. And if you take a look around the pond, there's a ton of nice, tall, grassy vegetation. Tasha literally chomped or mowed all of it down and then gathered it from different points of the main enclosure. And it would take her days and days to do all of it, simply because of how slow she was moving. But we got footage on our social media and YouTube page of that if anyone's interested in checking that stuff out. But she literally down all the goldenrod, all the grasses, all the flowers, everything you can see that's still green growing around the pond. She chomped it all down to a low-level pile, and then brought it all back into this den here. And then in the spring, we remove it, or the bears will, and get rid of it as well, so they have fresh bedding every year. This is actually a pile of leftover bedding. We put one down for this den just in case one of the bears wanted to use it. Apparently that was either poor bedding, or again, that den is no longer ideal for the bears, and they have better options to choose from. So we don't expect that pile of leaves and pine needles to be used, simply because no bear is planning currently on using that den down front. Well, I'm going to go ahead and start to wrap up the broadcast. I just want to thank everybody that's here at the Bear Center today for coming on out. As we get to the end of our year, the days get a little slower and less guest-filled, so we do appreciate you folks coming in today. We do adjust hours based on visitor attendance. So if we don't see people, we tend to start to shut down early. So I'm really happy that folks decided to show up today. So we have things to do, and the Bears get to see people at least for a little while longer while they're still up and active. So thank you folks that are here today. We appreciate you being willing to pay that admission price and come say hi to us and say hi to the Bears and learn a little bit about them. If you're going to be in town for a while, we highly recommend you also check out the International Wolf Center. They're on the other end of town. Very similar setup to what we have going on here, except it's wolves, not bears. But awesome facility. Again, go check it out if you have the time and the means. In addition, happy Friday, everybody. It's the weekend. That's usually exciting. We get a little uptick in visitors over the weekend, so we just want to wish everybody in the Ely area or just generally abroad, have a happy weekend. Have a good weekend. Fall is coming. Weather's here. Enjoy some of those fall festivities that Minnesota and Ely have to offer. It's a great time to get out and check out the state parks and other hiking trails and other outdoor adventures. So make sure, if you're not already having plans for this weekend, you get out and you enjoy the last bit of the warmth before the snow flies, and enjoy the fall season. It's a beautiful time to be out and recreating outside. So thank you, everyone who did today. Thank you for those of you tuning in online. We appreciate all the support, and we will see you on Monday at 12:30 for our next online broadcast. Thanks again, everybody, and we hope you all have a wonderful weekend.